everyone, and welcome to another edition of Salukimania. I'm SIU writer Todd Hefferman, and with me today is sports editor Les Winkeler. We're here to chat some football and basketball, with the Saluki starting this weekend with the women and next weekend with the men. Football team is off until November 2nd, when they go to Western Illinois. But big changes for the football team, Les. It looks like Corey Faulkner has a fractured index finger. Happened kind of a freakish way, stuck it in the helmet of one of his defenders by accident, and when the guy turned his helmet, his finger kind of went with it. So it's broken in two places, and he's supposed to have surgery today to fix it, to put some pins in, to keep it straight. He's hoping 4 to 6 weeks, but for the rest of the regular season, I'm pretty much banking on Ryan West. Can they win with Ryan West, and how do they do that?
You know, that's pretty much a worst-case scenario for both Ryan and the football team. The index finger is, and to anyone who's ever thrown a football, you know how critical that is.
That's your guide finger.
It's the guide finger, exactly, and you can't get anything on the ball if you can't grip it. And it's the worst-case scenario for the Salukis. You and I have talked several times in the press box during the season that the one area where they probably had the least amount of depth was that quarterback. I know Ryan West was highly touted coming out of high school, but he has essentially no experience, which is kind of the situation that Faulkner was cast into about 3 years ago when Paul McIntosh went down. So three things are going to happen the way I see it. Ryan West is going to have to mature very, very quickly. The offensive line is really going to have to step up their play, both to create more holes for the running backs and to protect an inexperienced quarterback. And number three, the defense is really going to have to pick it up now too, because the margin of error that they had with Faulkner at the helm is now gone. So they are going to have to maximize any offensive output they get.
Yeah, they haven't scored other than the safety. They always look at scoring on defense. They did a lot of that last year, especially the second half of the season. You know, maybe the off week gets them, but the thing I look at is they get 2 weeks to prepare West for his first start. It's much different than coming off the bench and trying to fill in like he had to against Charleston when he's never played before. Now, not only is he coming in, but they're on like the 14-yard line. It's right before the half, so he has to watch the clock. Did an excellent job. And he does have some good receivers. He has some pretty good running backs, and he's playing 4 teams that are giving up a lot of yards on the ground. I really like their chances, honestly. I call me rosy-colored glasses, but I really like their chances.
Well, it's I won't say it's reason to celebrate, but the thing to look at is the tough part of their schedule's behind them. There's no question about that. Now, I don't think any of the 4 teams left are patsies, and you can just look at them and just mark off W's. Yeah, I'm not sure you could do that with Faulkner in the lineup, but it certainly is a lot better going to face Missouri State, Illinois State, Indiana State, and Western rather than Youngstown State, UNI, South Dakota, and North Dakota State. So there is that.
And they get, this may be a bad thing. They get 2 of the 4 at home, where they played the best on the road. But they get Western. Western's much improved because they have a new coach that's won some national championships in Division II. His teams, you look at watching the games and their stats, they don't make a lot of turnovers. They took Youngstown to a 10-point game last week. Very good defensively. They're just offensively, they don't have a lot of weapons, but they will beat you if you don't go out and beat them, and that's what I'm concerned about.
And the one thing that you said earlier that's really makes this a little bit more palatable for the Salukis is that West does have 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and that's huge. I mean, there's a lot of reps in there, and it's a lot of time to build some confidence. So, there's no use whining about it. It's the hand they're dealt. They have to play with it. So we'll see what happens.
Well, moving on to basketball, the women's basketball team has an exhibition this weekend. Sydney Stein has a pretty new group, but she has a bunch of returning starters too. They may play different roles. We're not sure, but they have some talent coming back. You know, what do you hope to see out of them this year or this weekend?
What people need to see out of them is better defense. I mean, they gave up 77. They gave up 77 points a game last year. I think you and I could probably score against them last year. They just did not play much defense at all. I think they've got some. Physically they've got some talent. They've got some size. They've got some quickness. I really like their quickness. And they've got a couple of kids inside who can rebound and can hold their own offensively. So I think physically the talent is there for this to be at least a middle-of-the-road Valley team. Obviously, some things have to be changed in the program, just attitudes and just learning how to win just on a very basic level. But I think the opportunities are there. I'm actually looking forward to seeing this team play this year. You know, and they're all a year older. I mean, to be perfectly fair, it was a very, very young team last year. So, you know, if they mature a little bit and accept some roles and play some defense, you know, they can win some games, I think.
And then the men start in 2 weeks. They've had some extra time to practice, more than normal with a new NCAA rule. They were able to space it out a little bit more as the women have had to do or gotten to do the last couple of years. I think that's going to benefit them. And they really have a lot of new guys, 8 to 9 guys, and several that they're going to be counting on. Sean O'Brien, Michael Balogun, Casey Goodwin is probably going to be their starting point guard. What's your biggest question for them when you look at it? There's a lot of them. What's the biggest one for you think?
The rebounding and scoring inside. They just last year they struggled to do it. Devontae Drinkard's been injured his entire career here. If he can make a big step forward, the point guard situation is kind of in a state of flux, and I think they're really, really going to miss Jeff Early's athleticism. I mean, he was only 6'2", but he just did some incredible things, and actually gave them a bit of an inside threat. I mean, a lot of his points were scored on slashing moves to the basket, but still, yet it was, you know, someone they had to keep an eye on inside.
He was an automatic mismatch.
Right.
No matter who you were playing, nobody in the country had a 6'1" small forward, and for a lot of reasons, you know, both good and bad. But he was an automatic mismatch, and if you could take advantage of that mismatch, you could really exploit what he could do.
Mm-hmm.
And what my concern for him is, will they have another guy that gives as much as he did all the time, played hard all the time, and coaches will talk about that and players will talk about it, but he was a guy that you had to take him off the floor to get him to stop diving and stop playing hard, you know, as they say. I wonder if there's somebody else that will do that.
Yeah, he was a throwback to that era of the Tony Youngs and the Jamal Tatums and the Brian Mullins. I mean, he would have fit in with that group just absolutely perfectly because that's the way he approached the game. And, you know, he was a huge asset. And I think overall their talent runs deeper this year. But as you said, who's going to step up and take that role?
I think their three-point shooting will be better. That's going to be much different looking at that team, and that opens up a lot for them. But their biggest weakness is inside, and that's kind of where we're wondering where that's going to happen. But Bronson Verhines is a guy from Woodlawn that has a great resume, is so excited to be here, and they need him, and he's going to have a good role for them. And Sean O'Brien, I'm excited to see play, even though I will miss their first exhibition because I will be in Macomb watching football. But I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. And Balogun and Gibson are kind of the wild cards to me, too, in some of their guard play. So we'll see. They're a much older team. You know, they have a lot of these guys are new. They have a bunch of juniors. They only have 3 seniors, and I think that's including the walk-on, Colby Long. But I think Desmar Jackson's going to be terrific, and Devontae's looked as healthy as he's been. He says he's feeling about as good as he's ever felt, so hopefully that continues.
Yeah, you know, and Desmar Jackson was so good at times last year, and if he can step it up a notch from that, that's going to help considerably because you talk about a mismatch. That 6'5" guard with his moves and his quickness, he creates a lot of issues, and last year he was also very good at once he penetrated and had the defense collapse on him, he gave it up for some easy baskets to other people too. So it's going to be an interesting team to watch. I think they're probably going to be improved. I think they're going to be as improved as you think they're going to be, but they're going to be. I think they'll be a fun team to watch.
Well, we shall see. Women's game Friday night at SIU Arena, and football is off until next weekend, and the men, I believe, play at 7 o'clock next Saturday on November 2nd. Tune in, and thanks for joining us today.